Welcome back to the channel, folks. Today's video is going to be the repair and probably a partial restoration of an old classic, the Super Nintendo. I purchased this console on eBay for the priceless sum of I think £10, but there is a catch. It has power, but there doesn't appear to be any video output from it. That's what it said in the description. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the video output from both the RF and the component or the composite output before I start stripping it down. So what I'll do is I'll quickly get some power to it and I'll plug in the power supply. Okay, so we've got everything connected up. I've got the power cable in, I've got an RF cable, and I've got that connected up to this RF to HDMI converter. So basically what this box does is it converts the analog signal from the RF to an HDMI cable, which allows me to see it on the computer screen. So what I'm going to do is I shall place that out of the way just now. I've got a Nintendo burn-in test cartridge. I can use this to test the video controller, the memory, etc. On the console itself. It was sold to me as having power, but obviously there was no output. Now I suspect it's a possibility that whoever sold it only used the component. I've seen quite a few of these now where internally there's dry joints and connection issues with the cables. So when you plug in a component cable in, you don't get any audio or video. So I'll try it with the RF first. I'll just place the cartridge in and we'll switch it on and I'll see if we get anything on the screen, which we do. So that kind of tells me that the issue is going to be with the, hold on, let me see here. So use the select button to the controller doesn't appear to be working. I'll try another controller. It's not a great start. Right. Oh, that one works. So what we'll do is we'll go to the burn-in test, and we'll select the burn-in test, and we'll just let that run through and see what it comes up with. And it doesn't appear to be doing anything at all. So let me just switch it off. Switch it back on. So we'll do a controller test first. So none of the tests seem to be working. We'll try sound module test. I don't seem to hear any sound coming out of it, unless I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be. I don't seem to be getting any audio. Although it does seem to be generating, on OSP it seems to be generating audio, but I can't actually hear it through the speakers. Okay folks, I think we've worked out the problem with the audio. It was down to OBS that I'm using to capture the signal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run through it again, just so you can see what's happening. So if I switch it on, let's select sound module test, start, and it should, after 12 seconds, it should start playing audio, hopefully. Any second now. There we go. So it's definitely generating a video output. It's also generating audio. So I think we can safely say that the audio side it's fine, and we're also getting a video, an output for the graphical output as well. So okay folks, so I've connected it up again using the component cable this time, and I'm using this retro scaler to capture the output into HDMI. What I'll do is I'll just switch this off and on again, and it should bring us up the colour bars, which it has. So what I'll do now is I'll switch the console on and see if we get anything out of it this time. And we do, yes, we do. So I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you, but we'll try the sound test again and see if we get anything out of that. I might need to change the setting on this again. Yeah, there we go. So we've got audio. So we know that component output is good as well. So I'll just do a quick reset on it, and we'll see if we can run the burn-in test this time. The burn-in test was failing earlier. It doesn't seem like it's doing it. Oh, there we go. It's doing something. I'll be honest with you, I'm not expecting that. That's definitely not right. It should be running through some tests. It should be testing memory and running tests on the board. But there's definitely something not right with that. Okay, well, let me get it opened up, and once we're inside I'll come back to you. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll get the case opened up. I'll use this game bit here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. So we'll get these out. Okay, so yeah, that's broken. Got bits of plastic inside, unfortunately. As you can see here, this is all cracked. Oh yeah, there's bits and bobs sitting inside, unfortunately. So I'll put the case away. I'll keep that plastic because I'll try and glue that back on again. Right, so I'll just get the power switch off first. And I seem to have misplaced my screwdriver, so I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay dokes folks, crisis averted. We'll get this power switch off. And I'll remove that. And we'll also remove this ejection bar. Right, now we just need to start taking screws out. So these two screws here are slightly larger for the cartridge slot, so I just need to make sure that I take a note of that. Okay, and that can get a clean up. And I've got a couple of screws at the back here as well. Okay, so that's the board out. And we'll get rid of this shield. And some of these screws are really loose, so I'm guessing someone's had this off before. Someone's been in it this before, I think. And I'll remove the screw for the voltage regulator. Right, so just at a quick glance, assuming that's been recapped at some point. That doesn't look original. I may be wrong. I think what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to get it under the microscope. So bear with me one moment. I shall swing in the microscope. Right, so just bear with me, folks. I'll just bring that into focus. Okay, folks, so I've got the video, the board under the microscope. So we'll just have a quick look round about the board. Just check and see if there's any kind of dry joints or anything like that. They're all solid enough. These all look solid enough as well. So I thought I should add in a wee bit of voiceover at this point. When I looked at the board under the scope, it was pretty apparent that somebody had attacked it with the blunt end of a ragman's trumpet prior to myself and effectively butchered it. There had been an attempt at recapping the board, which, as you can see from the footage, it hadn't gone all that well. So at this point I had the job of attempting to fix the damaged pads and the traces and try and do something with the corrosion before I fitted some new caps and carried on with the rest of the repairs. So what I'll do is I'll jump back now, back into the repairing of the traces and recapping the board, and we'll pick it up from there. Okay folks, so I thought I would bring this to your attention. These two pads here are for a surface mount capacitor and both were totally destroyed. So I tried to put some copper tape onto the pads here and solder them in onto this leg here and onto this trace here, but everything I've tried, it's not sticking and the cap just won't stay down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it with just a standard electrolyte capacitor. It's a 10 microfarad 25 volt. The capacitor that was in there originally was a 10 microfarad 50 volt, I think, but the 25 volt should be fine, that should be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and attach the negative to this piece of pad that's left here, and the positive should go onto this through hole here. So what I'll do is I'll scrape away the conformal coating on this trace here, on this through hole, and I'll attach the positive to there and the negative to here. So once I do that, I'll come back to you, then we'll give it a quick test. The CPU, that's been replaced. In fact, I've still got a bit of flux on there, I'll need to clean that off. Once I've done that with the capacitor, I'll give you a shout back and we'll give it a quick test and see how we get on. Okay, that's us. I've replaced that surface mount capacitor with a 10 microfarad electrolytic capacitor. As you can see, I've covered everything in conformal coating just to make sure nothing gets shorted out anywhere. That capacitor will work just the same as the surface mount capacitor, it just doesn't look as tidy, but the functionalities there. This shiny stuff you can see here, technically that's not flux, that is JB weld, which stuck to the board. Unfortunately it didn't stick the pads, but we got there in the end. So the final thing I'm going to do is what I do with most of these consoles, and this voltage regulator, this 5 volt regulator, I'm going to replace this with a 5 volt buck converter. Oh, I'll just get one out of the bag here. If I can get it out of the bag, that is. One of these. Basically it does the same job as the 5 volt DC regulator. However, this is more efficient and it generates way less heat. That'll keep the console running for years to come with a nice steady voltage supply. So what I'll do is I'll crack on, I'll get this replaced, and then we'll come back and we'll do the test on it from there. So a quick recap folks, pardon the pun, just to run over what's been done. Basically the CPU has been replaced using a donor board that I got from eBay. The CPU was removed and fitted into this one. The capacitors have all been replaced with the exception of these two capacitors here. These two surface mount capacitors have been replaced with radial capacitors. I'll just zoom in and let you see what I mean. There we go. So both these capacitors are 10 microfarad, 25 volts. That capacitor there is a bipolar capacitor. That actually comes as part of the kit to replace all the caps on these. The board was absolutely butchered. So someone had been in it before and attempted a fix and obviously gave up on it. I've also replaced the 5 volt regulator with a 5 volt buck converter. Does exactly the same job but far more efficient and doesn't generate any heat. So pride comes before a fall, as they say. I'll get this connected up and we'll do a test and see how it goes with the burn-in test. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work. My reasons for that is when we run the burn-in test before, everything seemed to work with the exception of actual running the burn-in test. So we got audio and we got a graphical output without any distortion. So that kind of told me that the audio side was working. The video is being drawn correctly. So I didn't see there being any issues with video RAM or where the video is generated. Everything looked fine. So we'll get it hooked up nevertheless. I shall... What do we need? Right. We need an AV cable for a kick-off. I'll just make sure there's nothing under there that's going to short the board out. Like that. Right, I'll get the joypad. Connect up the power switch. What else do I need? Yep, I need power. That's a good start. And I also need the burn-in cartridge in. Right. So hopefully when I switch this retro scaler on, There we go. So that's a good start. Let's run the burn-in test. Burn-in, we'll see how that goes. That's looking good. That is looking very good. Excellent. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I would say that was working. As you can see from the overlay in the corner here, you can see that there's no artifacts or missing graphics or anything like that. The sound's okay. Yeah, that looks good. Yep, I'm happy with that. Excellent. Right, so next thing we need to do is turn our attention to the case now. That's in a bit of a state as well. It's I've got bits cracked and bits broken off and all sorts. So the next part of the video will be restoring the case. So I'll end this here at the moment, and when we bring you back in, we'll be getting on with the case. Okay folks, so as you can see, I've got the case here ready for retrobriting. It's extremely yellowed, the plastics look terrible. That colour there is kind of more in keeping with what the original colour of the console was when it was new. So in order to do that, I've got a 5 litre can of hydrogen peroxide, which I'll just get out the bag here. This stuff here, and what I'll do is I'm going to fill a plastic container like this one here, and the console will be sat inside the plastic container filled with hydrogen peroxide, and we'll put on a UV light over the top, and that will start the retrobriting process. That'll take all the discoloration out of the plastic and hopefully return it to something more akin to what it was when it came out the factory. So what I'll do is I'll get that set up, and I'll get the retrobrite process started, and once that's completed, it'll take a few days to do that, maybe 24 to 36 hours, and once that's complete, I'll show you a picture of the results of that. So I'll come back to you once that's done. Right folks, that's the retrobrite process finished on the top part of the case, and as you can see, that's a massive improvement on what it was. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the bottom half of the case done. Before I do that though, I'm going to remove these stickers because I think the hydrogen peroxide might affect them. I don't want the serial number or anything coming off, so I'm going to carefully remove these stickers. I'll put this into the retrobrite or into the hydrogen peroxide. We'll get this bottom half done as well, and then we'll get the case put together. So I'll crack on and get these off, get this into the tub with the hydrogen peroxide, and once that's finished I'll come back to you. Okay folks, so that's the retrobriting process completed. As you can see, the case is much closer to the original colour. It's not perfect, but I think you'll agree when I show you the before and after pictures. This is way better than what it was before. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a start, and I'll get the board and everything inside it. We'll get it rebuilt, and we'll do a quick test at the end. So what I'll do is I'll put you on a wee bit of a time lapse while I put everything back in it. So I'll catch you back here 2 minutes. Right folks, just a quick one before I go any further. Usually there's a cover on top here which covers these capacitors chips and is used as a heat sink for the voltage regulator. In this case I'm not going to fit this. The reason being, I've got a 5 volt buck converter here, and on the back of that there's some metal pins which would short on this heatsink. But basically all this is doing is acting as a heatsink for that regulator, but it's not required anymore as it doesn't generate the same amount of heat as the 7508 or the 7805 regulator. So I'm just going to leave that off and we'll carry on without it. So folks, the last thing to do, now that the hard work's done, is to get a cartridge in and give it a go. So I've got a copy of Super Mario Kart here. I'm not going to profess to be the greatest, but I'll have a go at it anyway. So I'll stick that in there and I'll start capturing it on the retro scaler. There we go. Right, one player game, Mario Kart GP. Okay, that. And we'll go the monkey or the gorilla. Flower Cup race, why not? There we go. Hopeless, absolutely hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. Well folks, thank God I'm not as bad at fixing them as I am playing them. So there we have it. One Super Nintendo restored. On the next video, I'll just take this one out and get it moved to the side. And the next item we've got to go onto the repair bench is the Intellivision. Again, this is a late 70s, early 80s console. This one apparently powers on, but there doesn't appear to be any video output from it. So stay tuned folks, and this one will be coming up shortly. Thank you for watching.